So good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. I'm Kaylin Betzig. I'm the president here at WCTC. We are sharing with you our plans to improve our Emergency Vehicle Operations Center track, or also known as EVOC, where we train our police officers, firefighters, our emergency responders, and our truck drivers who provide critical services to our community and also meet the needs of business and industry. We wanted to hold these information sessions to let our community know how we're expanding the EVOC track to meet the local service entity needs as well as the employer demands that we have received. At the same time, we want to be good neighbors and offer the community to provide input. So we welcome your questions and comments at the end of the session tonight. We're also recording tonight's session, and we'll make it available on our EVOC webpage for those who can't attend in person. So if you know individuals that would be interested in watching that, please direct them to that EVOC page. It's on your materials that you have on your chairs, so you can go right to that page and stream that and encourage others to take a look at that too. So we, again, thank you for attending tonight, and we'll get started.
Thank you, Kaylin. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Shields, and I'm the Dean of the School of Applied Technologies. And in my role as Dean of Applied Technologies, I work closely with our truck driver training program. And I will also introduce the other members up here as well. Dr. Greg West is in the front row there. He is the Dean of the School of Protective and Human Services. Brian Doro is the Associate Dean of Criminal Justice Law Enforcement. Courtney Hull is the Associate Dean for the Fire and EMS programs, and Mark Resnick is the Associate Dean of Graphics and Engineering Technology programs. Jeff Leverns is our Director of Facility Services, and we also have representatives here from our engineering firms of Short, Elliott, and Hendrickson, and Key Engineering Group, and they will also be sharing information throughout the evening in our presentation. So the first thing that we would like to address is what is the EVOC. So the location of the EVOC, and I'll just show an overhead map here on our campus so you have a frame of reference as to where that is exactly on our campus. We are located right now in the Richard T. Anderson Education Center, and our EVOC training grounds is over in this area on our campus. And you can see our baseball diamond right here. Our current EVOC training area is right here, and the fire station is right here. We currently have some gravel roads here that are used a little bit by our facilities area, and the tree line along the back of our property. And then this tree line here is also a fence line that goes around this side of our property. For another frame of reference, you can see the Pewaukee High School football field, and then the subdivision behind our property there on EVOC. So we'll switch back to PowerPoint. And I guess I would ask as we get into the presentation that we would hold all questions and comments until the end of the presentation. So that EVOC area is used by the criminal justice law enforcement programs, fire and emergency medical service programs, truck driving programs, and there's in-service that takes place on that area for local police and fire departments, which is outside of our coursework. We have motorcycle rider courses, which are non-credit courses that are given to the public. And then we have defensive driver training that is primarily for teenage drivers. So really we have 5 heavy use areas within those. The motorcycle rider courses, the criminal justice law enforcement, fire and emergency medical service training, and the truck driver programs. Those 5 program areas utilize that space on a daily basis. And the motorcycle rider courses would like to use it more and the defensive driver would like to use it more, but because of the high demand of those program areas, they're not able to use it as much as they would like to. So the current state of the EVOC that we have out there right now, it's more than 30 years old. It lacks real-world driving scenarios. The availability constraints due to the in-service training and our enrollment gains are all huge constraints as part of the current state of the track. Part of the current state also is that the creativity is really limited for different types of obstacle courses for the driver training programs to be out there. Another issue with our current situation is that we are using roadways and parking lots within our existing campus to do some of the training for the police and law enforcement training, which creates situations that are concerning to students when they see people getting a mock arrest on our campus and things like that, as well as safety concerns of having that type of scenario just out in the open. And in 2002, we had approximately 24 truck driving students in our program. This past year, we trained over 160 students in our truck driving program. And the driver training standards and best practices for training within the law enforcement areas, truck driver, along with training on the apparatus for the fire and EMS areas, those best practices for training have all evolved and changed in the 30 years since we have built that existing area. So our EVOC must be updated and expanded. So why is this important? There's many reasons why we need to expand this area. We need to improve services. Our fire stations, departments in the area are not able to use our training grounds as much as they would like to. There's licensing and certifications that goes along with that type of driving, and they're not able to use our areas. We would like to be able to update those facilities to provide real-world scenario-based training, and is what I mean by that, within the pathways around the proposed course, there would be roundabouts in that area, railroad crossings, and other controlled intersections that we don't currently have. And we need to be able to provide employer demand training on demand when they need it, when the different departments need it locally, as our local employers in the truck driving industry need different types of training. We need to be able to have space on our campus to meet those demands. And the whole idea of being able to train within that confined environment is very attractive to law enforcement and to truck driving, because we're not doing that initial training on the public roads. We're able to introduce students in law enforcement to different scenarios in this area that we're not able to do in the communities, and same with truck driving. We need to have our truck driving students drive in a confined area before they go out on the road, just for public safety within all of our communities. At this time, we're going to watch a video that highlights how the EVOC is used to prepare the existing workforce in the areas that I've mentioned, and we'll also be hearing about the skills that are gained as they are on the EVOC. WCTC's Emergency Vehicle Operation course, or EVOC, is used to train our students in truck driving, fire and EMS, and criminal justice programs. It is also used for motorcycle rider courses and defensive driver training. The current EVOC was built 30 years ago and is outdated and insufficient for current training standards and state and federal requirements. As the need for our graduates from these high-demand program areas has increased, the demand for the EVOC has increased as well. Graduates of these programs live and work in the community and have an impact on our quality of life. For all of these reasons, we are proposing an expansion of WCTC's EVOC.
We have a very long-standing relationship with Waukesha County Technical College. We probably hire the lion's share of our deputies that have gone through not only their associate degree program, but also the law enforcement in-service program. And we utilize WCTC for much of our in-service training, which is a wide variety of subject matters, from investigative courses to defensive tactics to vehicle operations. They are really our most used law enforcement training vendor. Right now, the primary use for the EVOC program is through our in-service training. The state of Wisconsin mandates that we have particular recurrent training in emergency vehicle operation for every law enforcement officer that takes place every other year. And so WCTC is our primary vendor for that training, and we've had that relationship for a long time. Well, a lot of people think that a law enforcement officer just gets behind a wheel and drives and they use the same skill set that the average citizen uses, and that's not true. We obviously have to drive in a lot of different weather conditions, and we drive on a lot of different surfaces. And many times, again, we have to do so at pretty elevated speed levels. And so it's important that officers understand how these vehicles operate at a high level of speed. They need to understand how they handle on different terrains, different weather conditions, and they need to be able to make judgments and decisions about how they're going to continue high-speed operation dependent on time of day issues and other traffic issues. So having a facility that allows us to simulate the kind of driving that a law enforcement officer does on a day-to-day basis is really critical to making sure that we have the proficiency level we need to be able to drive safely in the community. Well, I think we've always had really good training at WCTC. Any improvement in that training, I think, really has to coincide with an improvement of the facility. Because as it stands right now, the WCTC EVOC course is really nothing more than a large parking lot with a skid pan in it. And while I think the instructors in the program have done a lot to make the most use of that facility, we really have learned over many decades of vehicle operations that you need to have a facility that allows different types of driving. When I look at the new plans of the EVOC facility, a couple of things are pretty apparent. Number one, it's much bigger, so it allows us to get involved in different kinds of scenarios. There are roadways in the new plan that don't exist in the existing facility, and that roadway allows us to do quite a bit of simulation in terms of how the vehicles handle on curbs and how they handle at straightaways. There's also a roundabout that's in the new plan, which is something that all the drivers in the state are getting more and more accustomed to and more experienced with. And when we're dealing with a high-speed pursuit type scenario, it's really a good idea to have the ability to be able to simulate the kind of driving that we do on a day-to-day basis. And so having that roundabout, I think, is a good addition. So in general, the new facility is not only bigger, but it adds a lot of different nuances to the driving that more realistically places the training in a real-world environment. I think that it's about time that we have such a great facility that's available. So I'm excited for the opportunity to provide our deputies with the level of training that's going to really affect their ability to operate more safely. I think we are literally at the cusp of the state-of-the-art kind of a facility, given some of the enhancements that this plan offers.
City of Waukesha Fire Department values the importance of drivers training because of what you see. I mean, we have very large apparatus that are moving through in an emergent fashion, traveling through our streets at sometimes very accelerated speeds. Traffic is only getting busier in every one of our communities and in the county. So really, we value the importance, and we think that drivers training is important so that our personnel are better prepared to navigate safely and respond to our customers' emergencies when they're called to help. Number one, and the biggest challenge for the City of Waukesha Fire Department for the course is just getting the time. The track is constantly being utilized. Our organization would love to be able to not only use the track for our yearly training, but we have frequent new employee training that we're forced to either go out to parking lots and utilize less than ideal operating conditions where the track is best suited for, where we have the open space and we have the opportunity. For our training, it's important that our drivers have an opportunity to drive on closed roads so that they can make mistakes in the training environment and not when they're out driving around. We're very excited by almost tripling the size and over the multi-year project. It's going to give us more opportunity, and it's going to allow us more chance to get on a closed circuit, drive on realistic street-like conditions that they're going to see in the community, and work in environments that are better suited for their overall success, and hopefully minimize our liability when we're out driving and minimize our opportunity for damage to our own vehicles. At least 50% of our workforce has taken some level of training through the WCTC program, whether it's through the EMS or the fire service side. WCTC grads are well prepared, are ready to perform, and are the ones that we usually look to seek out when we are in hiring processes. Because A, they're familiar with the opportunities we have here in our community, they're tied back to our community, and it really makes for a great win-win situation.
In the last 2 years, we had 20 graduates come up from Waukesha Tech, so it's roughly 10 a year. The industry is really has a shortage of truck drivers because there's a lot of people retiring in the industry, and there's not many people wanting to go into the industry anymore. You need to have a safe driver, and he's got to come out with a good education of driving. And that's why school is very important. It's very important for a truck driver to go through all those experiences and hope that it stays in his mind, so when he's out on the road that he remembers what he was taught from school. A truck cannot stop on a dime, especially if you got 80,000 pounds. It takes a while for that truck to stop, and these cars will pull in front of you and step on a brake, and that's what happens. The roundabouts are getting very popular in the U.S., and when they're getting training to go around them, because you got to be careful with a 60, 65 foot unit that you're not running up on top of a car and being able to get around that roundabout. For us, we're self-insured, and we eat the first $400,000 from an accident. So they need to be well rounded out on driving truck, and we don't want any accidents. That's the last thing we want. Well, we think Waukesha Tech's a good school. They teach them well, and with your new program coming on board, it'll be so much better.
The expanded EVOC will allow for our students to receive real-world scenario-based training. So when they start their careers, they will be well prepared. At this time, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Jeff Leverns, our facilities director, and he's going to go over the phasing of the project and the expansion project details.
Thank you. With this, we're planning for 3 phases fit into our facilities master plan right now. With the first phase starting in the spring of 2017. Phase 2 will begin in the spring or summer of 2019, and phase 3 in 2021. And with these, we fit into our master plan with budgeting and with also the cycle of our projects. With this, each of these projects is, the first project, phase 1, is $1.2 million. Phase 2 is between 1.3 and 1.4, and phase 3 will be about 1.2 million. So Mike, if you could switch to the next phase. We'll talk about each of these phases here. This is our current existing EVOC circuit right here. What we're planning to do in phase 1 is build a new motorcycle training track and all of these associated roads that go around this area. And in these roads, as you've heard Mike and the sheriff talk about and the others, we talk about there's a roundabout plan right here, there's a 4-way stop here, 3-way stop here, and railroad tracks on these sides. All of the features that we can't currently do with our existing track. So this allows, with the motorcycle track being here, frees up a lot of our scheduling issues that we currently have. We will have 2 tracks, and we can actually have one set of training going on here and another set of training going on here, and also the track being used. Phase 2 would then be everything in yellow. This would be in 2019. So here we're building the larger training facility for the CDL trucks that'll be out there, and also 2 coal storage barns that will be going out here. And they'll be set up, both of these will be set up to be training for reverse backing up of the larger vehicles. Then phase 3 is to build a new educational building out there. It will be a classroom that'll have classrooms, a classroom building that'll look out onto both tracks. It'll have restroom facilities in there. And that project, again, is about $1.2 million to build that track. During phase 1, we'll try and finish all of the major earthwork that's required, and we'll build this retention basin down here. In December of 2015, we did contract out with Darcy and Key Engineering to do a sound study in that area. Darcy is the vice president of Key Engineering, so I'll let him talk about the plan for, or the noise study.
Sure. We did a study over about a 3-week period last December, and we set sound meters. We used calibrated 3M Pro dosimeters. We set them at different distances, one at 100 feet and one at 630 feet from the EVOC track. The dosimeters were calibrated to go on any sound that exceeded 45 decibels with no high limit set to them. The idea being that something that's going to run for 3 weeks is going to generate a lot of information, and it would eat up a lot of memory in these portable units that they had. So they were calibrated to go on and off, on at 45 decibels and off when below 45 decibels. So we gathered all this information. The finding was that at 630 feet, 93% of the data was at 50 decibels or less, and that's very consistent with a suburban setting. Just to try to put a parameter on that, that's somewhere in the range of a backyard noise or a library. So 93% of the time, that was our finding. 100 feet, we had 84% of the data was at 50 decibels or less, which was also consistent with a suburban setting. We looked to the noise ordinance, and we compared it against the noise ordinance. And the noise ordinance was kind of vague with Pewaukee, but it was consistent with the noise ordinance in that the noise ordinance said that you can't have loud noises, and these noises certainly do not qualify as loud noises at all. So the majority of the sound was very much in check and consistent with what we had. We had a couple of hits on our decibels that were a little bit elevated. What we think is that that data that we found at some of the higher levels, like we found higher levels of decibels at 630 feet than we did at 100 feet from the track. We think that it might have been related to the fire department that was relatively close. So there was within the meters, we didn't really find anything that was startling or loud, and we feel that the sound is definitely in check. WCTC goes to great lengths to keep the sound down with what they're doing within their operations. So in general, again, we thought we discovered that the sound was within suburban limits, within suburban levels. Yeah, here's a good example with that 100 feet from the EVOC track and then 630 feet from the EVOC track. And the elevated level with the fire station, though the fire station typically they clear the driveway before they hit the siren. The trucks themselves are they're not as equipped to be as quiet as the trucks that you might find on the EVOC track. So very consistent with the suburban level is our finding.
As we do this project, there is a tree line, as Mike showed you on that initial plan, that will remain. The tree line along here, we're planning not to disturb any of the trees along this tree line here. We're going to build a berm. If we go back to the original plan here, this berm will be right here. It's about 580 feet long, and it's about 150 feet away from the fence line is what the plan is for this berm. And if you recall from the sound readings that Darcy showed us, at 100 feet, 84% of the sound. So our berm will actually be farther away than that first point that was right here close to the EVOC track. So our sound should be still less than that original plan if we continue to go through those same things. We're also planning to plant some white pines on this berm. White pines grow fairly fast and they don't lose their leaves in the fall or in the winter time, so we should have the sight and the sound assistance from the white pines when they start growing up there. We don't currently allow engine braking or horn blowing on this on the plan here, so we won't be allowing that. We do use lower wattage of speakers in the police vehicles right now. They come in 2 different wattages, and we use the lower one. And we also do intermittent use on our sirens. We don't blow them constantly out here. And with these new plans, we'll be installing directional LED lights that'll be cutoffs at the edge of the parking lot, so we won't have the light pollution going past the tracks. Okay. With this, we also show an elevation of the track level and the berms here that will be going in. So this is the track level. Here's the berm that we're planning to build, and our fence line is right back here. We have 2 elevations that show the different lengths and sizes of the track and the berms that are going in. So with this, our plan at this point is in September of 2016, we'll be going before the WCTC District Board to ask for state board approval, which is a practice that we follow with all of our major projects. During the fall of this year, we'll be going to the village for the Plan Commission approval, and then the State Technical College System Board will review this project, and we'll go for approval in probably November of 2016. During that same time, we'll be going for Department of Natural Resources review. Key Engineering is currently conducting an environmental assessment on this entire project for us. And then the plan is to go out for bidding in January, go for the construction of board approval in probably February or March, and start construction in the spring of 2017.
Thank you, Jeff. I just want to make you all aware of our upcoming dates. We have an EVOC site visit date scheduled for Friday, July 29th from noon until 5, where the public is invited to come and tour the EVOC site, and you can learn more about where the proposed berm will be, where the proposed motorcycle training course will be, as well as the other proposed expansions. And then our next information session that we have is Thursday, August 11th. And it's back here in this room here. And that will go from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. And then we have a second EVOC site visit date following that information session on Saturday, August 13th from 8 until noon. And we would just ask that people would meet back by the T building before you enter the EVOC track, and then we'll have a shuttle service to move people back and forth out there. And for more information, as Kaylin mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, all the information that we're covering tonight will be available at this particular URL. It's wctc.edu/EVOC. So if there's interest from your neighbors to look at this information closer, it will be available. It is available. And then at this time, we'd like to open the microphone for questions and comments. And a practice that we use in many of our other meetings is that we have people comment for up to 3 minutes to allow everyone in the group to be able to have an opportunity to talk. And then we'd also ask that you state your name and interest in attending this as well.
And thank you for the presentation. I have trouble hearing and seeing, and so I heard it all. As I said, my name is Pauline Jaski. I currently am the owner of Fairway Transit in Pewaukee, right across the freeway. And I hire a lot of your students, and they are very well trained with the facilities you have. But there is certainly room for improvement. I need to share with you that my first career was a nurse, and I spent many hours in the emergency room. As my mother always said, prevention is better than a pound of cure. An ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. And so my first interest in improving this track and providing better training, of course, is the public safety issue. As the owner of a company, I take great responsibility and interest in providing safe transportation. And I think that would be important to everyone in this room because the roads are certainly more crowded than they used to be. Years ago, we could hire, when I started in the industry, all the truck drivers were farm boys. There are no farm boys left nowadays. Most of the people that want to attend the truck driving school have no experience even with a stick shift, much less a big truck. So it's extremely important that we have the facility available for them to train. There is currently, as Mr. Krailkamp said, a tremendous shortage of truck drivers. And so the need is obviously there. Trucking provides great economy improvement. We are hoping the economy gets better, and as it gets better, there's even a stronger need for truck drivers. I also think it's extremely important that we have well-trained police and fire. I haven't had recently to use any of that, but I want it to be there when I need it. And so my only disappointment with your presentation is that we can't have it all at once. I would just love to see Phase 4 completed. I'd be even more excited if you told me Phase 2 was going to be done sooner. But I do encourage you to keep progressing and providing all these things. I don't know, and maybe you can share that with me, is there any plans for providing some uphill and downhill on the track? Because there's a difference in driving a truck up a hill and down a hill than it is on a straightaway. And I'm glad to see you're putting that roundabout in because, as Mr. Krailkamp said, you wouldn't believe the time the truck drivers have avoiding. People do not know that it takes both lanes of that roundabout for a truck to transfer through that roundabout. So that is, and to teach these drivers how to prepare themselves for making sure that there's clear way to get through that roundabout is extremely important. There doesn't seem to be an intersection that our state DOT doesn't want to put a roundabout in. So thank you very much for the time and the presentation.
Thank you, Mrs. Jaski. Jeff, did you want to, there are grade changes on the course in terms of your question about the uphill. There are grade changes on the roadway around the courses that we'll have out there, so that will provide some uphill and downhill changes.
Steve Hansen is the civil engineer who helped design this for us. So Steve, maybe you can answer that question.
He said it very well. There are some great changes
Okay.
as you progress along the track both ways, uphill and down.
How steep are they?
Probably 5% or something like that, and I will not real steep.
Any other questions or comments?
Good evening. My name is Andrew Barth. I am a neighbor of the track and am currently quite opposed to the current use of the facility as well as the proposed changes being made. I've never had a problem with it being used for emergency services. It was being used for that when I moved in. I accept it, and that's for the good of the community. But what happens these days for most of its use is just for truck driver training. The constant rumble of the diesel trucks, the pressure valves popping, the brakes squealing is just a never-ending nuisance. The facility is a nuisance to me and my family. I don't know if you know how many days that facility is in use for the truck driver training, but it's a vast majority. It's unacceptable. I'm sorry, with all due respect, sir, your analysis is not very accurate. Not only is there a lot of noise pollution, there's light pollution. The lights beam into our backyards. The track is not used at the hours that it's been specified for use as. It's used before the hours you told me. It's used after the hours you told me. So I don't believe a lot of the information that's being provided. I don't want to see this track enlarged. And if that berm is going to provide anything, it'll provide a nice scenery for those using the track because our properties are considerably higher than that berm. So what's the point of it? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barth. I would like to briefly address the hours of use comment that you made. The hours of use, as I believe you're referring to, are 7 to 10 a.m. or 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And our courses start out there at 7 a.m. and there is some prep work that goes into preparing the course in the morning. And at the end of the day, there's also some takedown that needs to be done to allow the course to be freed up for the next day if it's a different type of training. And as with any type of classroom environment, there's things that need to go on to get the course ready for the students when they get there, and also take it down at the end of the day. Certainly appreciate your comments, though. Any other input, questions, comments?
If I could just reply to Mr. Barth also with respect to the study. The meters that we used, the dosimeter, the pros, the 3M pros are calibrated to operate within a range of frequency that would capture the low rumblings of the truck and the higher frequencies of the brakes as the air is released. And these are the same meters that we've used on numerous sites. We've done sound studies for the federal government. We've done sound studies for individual contractors. And these meters, you know, you're not the first person to express discontent with the sound that's coming from a neighboring property. And we've had success in defending our study. And, you know, I feel strongly that our study does reflect accurately the sound that's occurring at 100 and 630 feet from the EVOC track.
You failed to highlight what those noises are that you exceed your standards. What are they? What is their duration and frequency? I mean, to me, and like I said, I'm sorry, I just didn't find much value in your analysis. To me, it wasn't very scientific. It offered very little information. It didn't take into account weather conditions, wind conditions, the time of day that these noises were occurring. I'm sorry.
It operated 24 hours a day from December the 4th till December the 23rd. It was a 3-week period during the truck school. It was in the middle of winter.
You didn't tell when those noises exceeded your standards. I'm sorry, it didn't shed much light on the noise situation. Unless you live there, you don't understand how much noise is generated by a trucking business that operates from 6:30 in the morning till 11 at night.
It did run a statistical balance, though, of the sound over a 24-hour period through the entire duration of the study. and it is consistent with sound studies performed all across America.
I don't dispute that. I'm just saying that putting a decimeter in a couple of locations doesn't exactly tell you the real environment that the neighbors are having to tolerate. It is just too long a duration each day. It is, and I didn't get an answer, but how many days does that trucking business operate? It's a lot. It's excessive, and if you had to be zoned, you probably wouldn't get zoning for that type of operation next to a residential community.
We did some calculations on the number of days during the semester, a 16-week semester, and we run the course 52 days a semester into the evening, and a 16-week semester with 5 days a week. Some contact information if you'd like to discuss this further. If you have any other questions, please feel free to contact me. My phone number is listed there. Shelley Kuhn is our Public Relations Director. Her phone number is listed there as well. Please feel free to reach out to either one of us with your questions or comments. That concludes our presentation for the evening. Thank you all very much.